Hello and welcome back to the channel. I wanted to get more into a subject that I discussed recently because a lot of you responded and you were sharing your own stories about how your family property has been either compromised or taken from you using legal avenues. But these laws that have been put in place, just because something is law doesn't mean that it's fair. It doesn't mean that it's a moral law either, because there are a lot of things that are on the law books that are immoral. Okay, a lot of things that are immoral, especially when you're talking about this sort of things. A lot of these laws were put in place specifically to take land from others. Okay. And so we talked about heirs property before. We're going to concentrate on adverse possession more so in this video, but I'm going to revisit the heirs property a little bit more for those of you who may have missed that, or just to add some more details to all of this. But again, the focus I want in this video is going to be on adverse possession. And a lot of these things we looked up many years ago because we were in real estate. We used to buy properties in the city of Detroit, Inkster, Redford, and surrounding areas. That was what we did. And so, of course, we were looking for all of the various laws that were on the books to see how you can acquire property. And there are just so many ways. And you would think to yourself that why would a system that tries to be the police of the world, why would they have such laws to where you can just swoop in and take family property? Even simple tax laws make it so if you pay someone's delinquent taxes, let me just say this real quick, okay? Just say you have a property that is free and clear. I'm going to even say your grandmother. She paid her house off a long time ago. The house is now worth, say, $100,000. And she just gets behind in her taxes and she can't pay them. Regardless to the fact that her house is worth $150,000 and over a 30 or 40 or 50 year period, she may have put hundreds of thousands of dollars into that property, okay? But she falls in a situation where she can't pay the taxes. And just say the taxes are $4,000, okay? Someone could come in and they could pay your delinquent taxes, okay? And thus attach themselves to your property. And they can then come and say, well, I want my $4,000. And if you are unable to come up with that $4,000, they could force the sale on your property because they own your delinquent taxes. You see? And so it's a lot of legal loopholes that they have established to where people are doing some very unfair, unrighteous, and scamish things. I'm going to call them scamish. Even though these things are legal, it doesn't mean that it's fair or righteous, okay? Doesn't mean that it's not immoral. So we talked about heirs property, and just to revisit that, this is where someone who owns land, they die, and then all of their land is by default divided between all of their living relatives. And some of these living relatives do not know each other, okay? And that creates a breach in a possible breach in that land ownership, because at any given time, any one of these heirs who may live in this state or that state or another country, any one of them could decide to sell their stake in that heir's property, okay? And once they decide to sell their stake in it, the person who bought it, they will say, well, we need to reach some type of agreement, blah, blah, blah. And if you can't reach some agreement with them, they could force the sale. And in many cases, and I didn't talk about this before, in many cases, when they force the sale of the whole property, many cases, they are the ones who comes and buys the other people's property for pennies on a dollar because they can't afford to do anything. The original owners or the original heirs many times can't afford to do anything. They can't afford to do anything. And so that person who slithered, excuse me, that person who slithered their way in could essentially be the one who is buying out everyone who says, oh, we couldn't reach a reasonable deal. And so they are stealing property for pennies on the dollar. And the one family that was featured in the documentary that I shared, they had almost 500 acres that this slithering, slick person came in and was able to take their family land that was owned for generations. They were able to get this family land, and there was nothing these people could do about it. Nothing at all that they could do about it because they were not financially suited to do anything, or they weren't even well versed on how the law even worked. As a matter of fact, one of the guys even mentioned that. He says, I don't know what all this stuff means. And so that's why I said my people are destroyed for the lack of knowledge. Okay, so now I want to get into the adverse possession too, because this is another slick, sly dog way of taking someone's property. First of all, I'm going to give you what they mean when they say adverse possession. Like I said before, many years ago when we were in real estate, we've never bought land in that way, but we were always seeking various ways of acquiring land, and not even thinking about anything else. It's most of our properties that we purchased were bank-owned properties where people stopped paying their mortgage payment and it was foreclosed on. It was already said and done. Some were direct from the owners. So we've never been able to get anything through adverse possession. Heirs property, we've never gotten anything like that. But let me just read for you what adverse possession is. Adverse possession is a doctrine under which a person is in possession of land owned by someone else may acquire a valid title to it, so long as certain common law requirements are met, and the adverse possessor is in possession for a sufficient period of time as defined by a statute of limitations. So I'm going to get into the part where it says the adverse possessor is in possession. That's one of the things. You have to be in possession of the land to even go for the adverse possession. But let me show you how people are able to do this. Okay. More details about this. It is actually tied into squatters' rights. Adverse possession, sometimes colloquially described as squatter's right, is a legal principle under which a person who does not have legal title to a piece of property, usually land, acquires legal ownership based on continuous possession or occupation of the property without the permission of its legal owner. Okay, so let me just explain in layman's terms as clearly as I can how this can happen. What happens is a lot of times people are left property. For instance, I know someone very close whose family had property in Mississippi. A lot of land was left to them, but they lived north. Okay. They were nowhere near the property, didn't have anything to do with it. All they had were the deeds to show ownership. And so the property is lost in the sauce now, long gone, because they didn't know what to do with the deeds. They didn't have any money to do with anything concerning the land. And so it just sat there, and it don't vanish away. Land don't vanish away. Land is assets. You see, land is a possession that is very valuable, right? But let me tell you what happens with adverse possession. This is why they said it's usually land that people acquire with such a way, because just say you own or your family owns 50 acres down in Mississippi or Alabama or Georgia or any place like that, but you live in Chicago or you live in Detroit and you don't have any money, but all you know is somebody way back when left you all of these acres, and you're like, what am I supposed to do with it? Most people don't do anything with it. And so you will have an opportunist who lives nearby, and they are fully aware of who owns the property. And they're also fully aware that no one comes to do anything with the property. So what they can do is they can start taking care of the property. They could keep the grass cut if it's grass. They could keep certain things trimmed down. Another time they may come and say, I'm going to put up a little, farm fencing around this just to keep people off of it. I'm going to do this. And this person, the owner, the true owner of that property, living all the way in another state or 2 or 3 states away, who really don't have anything to do with the property, they're not going to object to what, just say the neighbor next door may be the one who's doing this. They might own 20 acres over there, but your 50 acres is sitting right there. And so they are taking care of your property. And they can go before the courts in that area. Many times it's Gentiles doing this stuff. So if you have a familiar Gentile face that goes before a court and says, well, I want to acquire this property through adverse possession. I haven't seen the owners of this property around in years. As a matter of fact, I've never seen them. They don't do anything with the property. I've been maintaining it. I even have a privacy fence on it, or should I say a farm fence, not a privacy fence. But I've been doing all of these things to the property, and the law allows for me to take adverse possession of this property. So I am seeking a legal title to this property that I've been taking care of. They can even park vehicles on it and say, well, I have my things that have been sitting on the property and blah, blah, blah. They can come up with whatever reason. 9 times out of 10, if they are in an area where that is permissible, that court is going to honor what they are requesting. And they are going to give that property to that person who inquired about it. So just like that, 50 acres down the drain. My people are destroyed for the lack of knowledge. This is why I say that we owe it to ourselves. We owe it to ourselves to know, okay? What you don't know can hurt you. You see, and for those of you who are not interested in these topics, it doesn't really matter if you're interested in these things, but the greater part of our community or our people who might be in situations like this, you could pass it along to them. Because like I said in the previous video where I was talking about stealing Black land permitted by law, and I talked about the Heirs law situation, where the family lost almost 500 acres just because of an opportunist. We need to know and understand that there are things that are already set in place, that are put in place just to take something that belongs to you, belongs to your friends, belongs to your family. Okay? We owe it to ourselves to know and to research. If you know that you have family land, talk to somebody. If they're not interested in doing anything with it, because I know of other situations as well, to where elders, a group of elder sisters, they all owned it together. I talked about a brief part of where they were allowing these Gentiles to come in and clear timber from their property. One of the sisters ended up dying, okay? And we're talking about older people. And the particular one who died, her daughter had been asking for years to include them in the process of what happens with the land. And her mother was like, well, this and well, that. We're just going to hold on to it for now. Well, of course you're going to hold on to it, but your daughter is asking for some type of legal connection to it in case you pass away, right? And so when we get into the mindset of not wanting to handle our business and leaving proper wills and bringing the family in together to have meetings about what to do with things, this is how things are lost. So it's really sad. I mean, I look at all of this stuff. I look at this adverse possession, this heirs property, these tax sales, and all of these different legal loopholes that have been established to take away your assets, take away your land, your property. It's really sickening when you think about it. But we owe it to ourselves to know. We got to stop sitting on the seat of do nothing and expecting people to be honest and fair with us. You got to get out here and find out stuff on your own, because if they can take something, trust me, they're not going to say, oh, I just want to help them to understand land ownership. No, they're going to help you to understand how they can become the owner of your land by taking it from you. That's the understanding they're willing to give. It is what it is. I'm done with this video. I just wanted to chime in on this again because this is very important. It doesn't matter how much land you own, even if it's an acre, even if it's a house. Treat that land and that house like an asset. Treat it like it's supposed to be treated. Okay? Pass your generational wealth down instead of allowing it to be taken. Okay? If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel and definitely share and like this video. Definitely share and like this one. Okay? With that, family, I am out. Be sure to ring the bell to be notified of new uploads on this channel, and also comment, share, like, and subscribe.